everybody? Ty Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well on this early Friday morning here. We just got a lot of information in from some of the convective models. A lot of them are in range now, so we're going to go ahead and quickly discuss that. And we'll kind of go over the latest with our severe weather potential on Saturday. A couple of changes again. This is how a lot of how these winter style severe setups go, but it's no surprise here. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. If you're new, definitely consider subscribing, and then of course hit that share button as well. This is going to be a down to the wire type forecast really for this storm system. So many changes going on here. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it here. If you look to the right, we have on our screen here our overall severe area for Saturday right now. Well, really tomorrow at this point, we can call it now finally. But what you can see here is that we have a little bit of an increase in area here for the slight risk. Now we have Nashville now in that slight risk as well, and we're now seeing Houston coming out of the slight risk, more so in the marginal risk. Storms also seem to be trending to fire a little bit later in the afternoon and into the evening in comparison to what we have been seeing. At first, this kind of looked like an early afternoon, late morning type event, but now we've definitely trended more so towards the opposite direction here. The main threats, well, all three hazards actually have equal threats here. The cool thing about being in day 2 is now we can actually get a look at the hazard type threat levels. And what we see is our 5% tornado threat, that's the equivalent to a slight risk, and then our 15% wind and hail threat is the equivalent to a slight risk as well. For the most part, mainly concerned about the wind and the tornado threat. The hail threat is there though. I've also seen quite an uptrend on lapse rates here. We'll get into the real nitty-gritty details tomorrow morning, more so than anything else. But this is just kind of an overview of what I'm seeing here. But these are the main details to look at. If you're pretty much from Nashville all the way towards Shreveport, I'd be watching this area the most tomorrow for tornadoes. Wind threat is going to be a little bit further off to the west starting out, and will continue to stretch up to the northeast here. Then the hail threat is going to mainly be mostly off to the west here. It's kind of condensed back towards Memphis and areas close to Houston. But if we look at the models here, not much has really changed as far as the kinematic setup. I was looking at a sounding earlier. This is from the mid to upper level trough here. Still see the positive tilt, no real surprises there at any point. You can see here that we're looking at just a couple hours difference, but pretty much a similar look across the board here. This is the HRRR to the right. This is the NAM 3 kilometer to the left. And then, of course, we're looking at the 850s on both of these maps. It's going to be pretty much a similar deal here. There has been a slight uptrend with the HRRR's low-level jet, though. Well, actually, this is the first time we've been able to look at HRRR because it's a 48-hour run. These are very accurate runs, and they update very frequently, but the range on these convective models is a little bit less than what you would get with something like GFS or Euro. But we'll look at the HRRR first, and this is heading into early Saturday morning, and you can kind of see that low-level jet starting to kick in. Kind of clears out a little bit. Excuse me. In regards to when these storms would be expected to fire here, which would be right about this time, 22Z. I would say that's about 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern time, so that would be 4 Central. TV just went off after putting it in sleep mode. But yeah, pretty much right on the fringe of this is where I would expect some real activity to get going here. And if we look on not Euro, but on NAM here, it's pretty much the same thing. Jeez, I cannot clear my throat this morning. But the interesting thing to make note of here is the low-level jet kind of lags back a little bit more, so the outcome with this might be slightly different if either one of these two scenarios play out. There's a couple little extra tangents here as far as the low-level jet's concerned over towards Louisiana. My attention has kind of shifted a little bit back and forth with the overall tornado threat. If there was going to be an enhanced risk, I was thinking it would probably still end up being somewhere around here. But I'm thinking maybe a little bit further off to the west, because I was thinking more so right up towards the Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana line, particularly between Arkansas and Mississippi more. But now we're definitely hanging right around the center of that tri-state area. But Overall here, not much has really changed with my thoughts on the overall forecast here. And then we're going to go ahead and look at the mixed layer cape. This is looking at the instability available tomorrow. Trying to get NAM to go here. And this is heading into the morning hours. We already have some instability in place by this point. And then by the time we get into lunchtime, we get some really impressive instability, if anything. A couple of pockets here where we might even reach 2,000 joules per kilogram. Very favorable environment for severe storms, some of which, of course, can spin given the kinematics available. As far as moisture return temperature, we already know the deal with that at this point. If we were to look at HRRR, pretty much going to be a similar deal. The cape is a little less impressive with the HRRR. And then there's actually a couple of other models that we're going to look at here. Actually, this is off this recent run here. It actually looks a little bit better. But this is going to be something that I'm watching really closely. Like right over here towards this tri-state line like I've been talking about. We have a couple extra pockets here where we're getting up to about 2,000 plus joules per kilogram. And given all the other parameters in play, kinematics, while the low-level kinematics aren't quite as impressive as what they once were, still will be more than sufficient enough for maybe a tornado. Looks like this could be the look of an embedded supercell possibly. So this could be a supercell within the line. And here's that uptrend that I saw within the lapse rates becoming a little bit more steep. We were barely making 7.0 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Now we're starting to get to 7.3, getting into the mid sevens here. So those lapse rates are getting pretty steep, and with that also increases the hail threat as well. There's even analogs for significant hail, potentially up to baseball size. Don't know if this will end up verifying or not here as far as the hail is concerned, but the threat for tornadoes is definitely there as well. We'll have to see how this ultimately will play out anyway, because we've had some pretty gnarly looking setups and then they've been pretty much bust. But overall, still definitely something I'm going to have to be watching extremely close. So this is a model that I don't normally look at much. We looked at it really for the first time on the channel last night. And here's another model that I'm also showing for the first, not the first time, but first time in a while on the channel. This is the RFSA and also the HRWFE3. These are a couple extra convective models that we have at our disposal here. But with this, the cape's less impressive. But if we were to look at some of the soundings here, for example, Hodiograph looks a little bit more impressive here, especially in the 0 to 3 kilometer range, getting up to about 40 knots plus here. So it's still an up in the air forecast here, but pretty much every sounding that I've kind of looked at has been kind of leaning more into that tornado threat more so than in previous runs here. So still definitely got my eyes on this very closely here. Still seeing considerably steep lapse rates, although this one isn't quite as steep as what we were seeing with NAM 3 kilometer or HRRR here. But parameters are still considerably efficient here. EHI, the storm relative helicity, the shear, all of it's looking pretty good. Lift could be better here with this setup here. But of course, this is one of 4 models that we're looking at here. If we were to look at the RRFS, it's a little bit more aggressive like the HRRR here in this case. I thought this would kind of lean a little bit towards the NAM here, but not quite as impressive on the 0 to 1 range. The 0 to 3 range is still pretty sufficient, so this definitely kind of leans into that damaging wind setup a little bit more, but still can't rule out a couple of tornadoes with this either. Lapse rates are a little bit better with this as well. Actually, these are probably the most impressive lapse rates I've seen out of all the SQT charts so far at 7.7. But if we were to go ahead and then look at what the radar could be as we go into Saturday, this is what we'll get. Starting with the NAM here, we have the storms beginning to fire actually tonight, although the coverage will be limited. So you get into Saturday, here's that line forming. And the thing with the NAM is there's not as many discrete supercells being picked up on this particular run. I don't know if that will end up changing with the NAM 3 kilometer today, but we'll see what happens with that. Definitely would raise the alarm for sure if this ends up showing that. But if we look at the GFS and start comparison, we'll do the same thing here. Notice that instead of a squall line forming almost off the bat here, we get a little bit of a prefrontal action. And this isn't necessarily like what we were seeing the other week with the Houston setup where we had a lot of crap vection, as I call it. or as a lot of the weather community will call it. So it looks like there's definitely a few healthy supercells here possibly that could form. We have to watch these. We would have to watch these evolve throughout the early afternoon and into the evening here. But if this does validate, we could maybe see a few more tornadoes if this outcome comes into play. And then even as the squall line begins to form, we still see some of those discrete cells trying to get going here. With kinematics in play, that could cause trouble here possibly. If we look at the other models that we have here, HRW for example, HRW's still been kind of going hot with the prefrontal discrete cells here. It was doing that since last night, and since the latest run it's still kind of holding on to that. In particular, it's really favoring northern and north central Louisiana in particular, so that's something I'm going to be watching extremely close as we go throughout the day. And then of course we go to the RRFS here. Actually, from what I'm seeing with this, we're kind of in a messier mode, but I do see some potential, a little bit more convection available with this, maybe even some crapvection, but it also kind of favors a little bit more towards Arkansas here. So like I said, we're still kind of all over the place here, but I think RFS is kind of leaning towards damaging wind threat. So it's pretty much an even spread across the board here as far as our setup is concerned here. So still a lot of uncertainty as to what hazard type we'll see, but there's pretty high confidence that we're going to see some form of severe weather. Would not be surprised to see an enhanced risk, and we'll go over that again tomorrow morning. Tonight we'll talk about the weekend forecast in general for everybody, and then we'll kind of go from there. But I hope you guys found the video useful. Got to get ready to go to work here, so I'm going to talk at you guys later. Again, make sure you smash that like button if you're new here. You're enjoying the content, definitely consider subscribing. Love to get to 600 by the end of the year. But until the next video, I'll see you guys soon. It's been Metalhead Weatherman. Have a good day.